I must first say that to-do list is actually a very good concept for time management, which helps you become more productive. With to-do list, you note down all the different tasks you have in the day and you keep it in front of you so you always get reminded. Every time you complete a task, you check it, so there is some sense of progress, and any time of the day you know how much you have done and how much is left to complete. So the idea is very good, and when I learned about it, I also wanted to apply it, but just after a few days, I found myself moving away from it. I wasn't really finding it to be effective, and honestly, I wasn't completing all my tasks. It was rather getting more discouraging. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people, they start making to-do lists, but then they stop using it just after a few days. So I had been reading at the same time about various different time management techniques and productivity techniques, and I thought maybe I could actually include them in the to-do list to make it work better for me. And I'm glad I did that, because today the to-do list I use, the version of it is really very effective. It's part of my productivity system, and I've been using it every single day. So these changes in the to-do list are based on the 3 issues that I found. Number 1 is to-do lists are not practical or realistic, because we just note down all the different tasks that come to our mind without realizing if the day is enough to complete them. And even I used to note down so many different tasks, and later I realized the day of 8 hours or 9 hours was actually not enough for them. So that is number 1 issue. Number 2 is there's no sense of priority. Prioritization is an effective time management strategy, because when you have so many hours in the day, you want to get the most important task completed first, and the day can be unexpected as well. You could have, if you are, let's say, doing a job, you know that there could be different ad hoc requests, sudden meetings, or if you even are maybe working from home, you could have some issue at home and you are trying to fix it. Things don't always go planned in the real life, but when you have got the most important task completed in the day, and even if you have not enough energy left in the day, or whatever is the reason that you are maybe leaving 3 or 4 tasks in the to-do list, maybe you'll tackle them tomorrow. It's okay, because you have got most done already. And if we talk about this Pareto principle, where 80% of the output is coming from the 20% of the work, with prioritization, you're ensuring that you are completing that 20% of the work as first thing when you have the high amount of energy, high level of motivation in the day. And therefore, prioritization was an important element that I found was missing in the typical to-do list, because we were randomly putting all the different tasks that we had to complete in the day. Number 3 is to-do lists are not very rewarding, because we only feel rewarded with the to-do list when we check off all the tasks that are there. And if the issue is number 1, that it's not realistic and we just put so many tasks, we wouldn't feel motivated because we know that we haven't completed it. And therefore it rather gets more discouraging, which happened in my case as well. And here are the 3 changes that solve these issues. Number 1 is the prioritization. So in your to-do list, you basically note down the top 3 or 5 tasks that you need to complete in the day that are the must, they are most important, and they are most urgent as well. This actually has been inspired by the Eisenhower matrix technique, which is a really good time management technique, and I've made a separate video on this because it's a really good concept. When you put all the top 3 or 5 tasks, you need to complete them as first thing. Then you note down the other task in the day, and towards the end, the last 3 or 5 tasks should be the ones which are not very important or not urgent right now. So even if you don't complete them today for any reason, you can complete them tomorrow. So this makes you more strategic about approaching your task and making progress. And when you are getting the most important task done, you are actually getting more productive. Now the second change I did is include an element of time, and this is what makes your to-do list more practical. When you note down the time duration you plan to spend on each task, you know exactly, because when you sum it up, you know exactly how many hours it's going to take you to complete all the tasks. And that's what makes them more realistic. So if you have written down 10 tasks and next to them you have written down what's the duration of time you can spend on them, maybe the maximum duration or an estimate of how much time it could roughly take you. And when you take the sum, you know how much time it's going to take, and then you can actually check if that much time you have in the day. And here the prioritization and the time element are working together, because you can actually allocate more time to the most important things, the top 5 tasks that you have written down. So you now know these are your priority tasks and you need to spend this much of time. It also helps you recalculate how much time you should actually spend on each task. If let's say you need to complete all the tasks and you have assigned some time, you just maybe change how much time you're going to spend on the different tasks depending on their importance or how much they really need to be focused. And then accordingly, you can just reallocate the time so that you are spending more time on things that matter the most, or where you need to actually do more quality work than the rest. So this is another usefulness of including the time element here. Now I would like to give you an important tip here. Whenever you are starting a task, just use a stopwatch. So you just set the amount of time you have allocated to that time, and then you hit start every time you start working on that task. It makes you more focused because mentally you are challenged to complete that task in the given duration. And it's a very good tracking system, so you know how much time is gone and how much time is left for that task. This also helps you, by the way, in getting rid of the perfection paralysis, if that's one of the issues you face commonly. I face it a lot because I want sometimes things to be so perfect that I'm just overthinking them, overanalyzing them. The problem is when you overspend time on something, you are shrinking the time you need to spend on something else. So it again depends on your to-do list and your day, how much free time you actually have. If you don't have that free time, it's a very tight schedule, then stopwatch and the time element would always remind you that you only have this much time. If you have more time left later, you can actually come back, but otherwise you only stick with the time as much as possible. It will really help. The third element is actually the scoring. So with the to-do list, you only feel rewarded when you have completed all the tasks, but with the scoring, you actually give yourself a percentage. So you divide the number of tasks you have completed by the number of tasks you had to do in the day, and then take the percentage. And you keep a calendar where you note down every single day the percentage. It will serve as a really good motivator, because every time you score less, you will be challenged to score more the next day and the next day. And on the other hand, it's also not very demotivating, because when you're scoring yourself in percentage, let's say it's 90% score or 80% score because you couldn't complete 2 tasks in your to-do list, it's not very demotivating. The number still looks okay. When you look at it on a scale, a scoring of 80% or 90%, it's still very close to 100%. And therefore, you just have to say to yourself every day you are not scoring a 90% or 100%, that tomorrow I'll score more. And when you have the score in front of you, it really works like a game and you feel more challenged to keep doing better and better and better. So it's really very helpful. So these changes will start making your to-do list so much effective already, but you can actually level it up by making one more change. So instead of actually noting down the time duration for each task, you could actually plan your to-do list in the form of your entire day schedule. Like the template I'm showing you over here, you could have an hourly format or half-hourly format depending on how much you want to break down. Now these changes will make your to-do list so much more effective. I highly recommend that you try, because I found them to be working so very well for me. And if you're like me who found similar challenges with the to-do list, then you will really benefit. This will really help you organize your day so very well and therefore manage your time even more effectively. Another way to use it is actually a calendar, and one of the best free options is the Google Calendar. One really good thing about Google Calendar that I find is better over any diary or journal is that it's always accessible everywhere. I have it as an app on my phone, and then I have it on my laptop as well. So I just keep the tab open, or I just put the phone in front of me and just keep the Google Calendar open, and so I can keep tracking the time. So you can always access it all the time, because we keep our phones with us all the time. and that's another good way of making better use of the phones that we have, and it's very easy to get started with. But if you need a tutorial video on how I use Google Calendar, you can just let me know in the comments and I'll make a video on it. And this was all about the to-do list that I use and I find personally to be working so well. I can't wait for you to try it and let me know how it works for you. I'm quite confident it will work very well for you. And if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel because I'll be posting more such videos in future.